I've been talking about how I went no contact with my Nigerian father after a lifetime of chronic non-contact sexual abuse that started when I was 16. Brief summary in case you didn't see the first video. I had left my class books inside of my parents' bedroom where the family computer was because I'd been doing an assignment there the night before. And when I went to leave for school, I knocked on his door for him to let me in so that I could get the book and leave. He unlocked the door, let me in, got in bed, and continued masturbating while I was looking for my book. And it took me a minute to notice what was going on, and he continued staring at me and then started speaking to me while he was masturbating. And the through line for the chronic non-contact sexual abuse really is that gaze. It was him lying down in bed and kind of slitting his eyes as he looked at me and started speaking to me while he was masturbating. And in every year since then, up until I decided to go no contact in my 40s, my father would often slit his eyes when he was looking at me and stare at my breasts, my ass, whatever he decided to objectify at that moment. And it was this leery, dirty old man feeling vibe that I had basically my whole life. And it created a lot of symptoms in me, which is what I want to talk about today, that I didn't really know was sexual abuse until I was in my mid-20s. And even at that point, when a therapist told me that the masturbation was sexual abuse, I still really didn't know that him behaving in these leery ways around me constituted sexual abuse and that it was something I was essentially dealing with my whole life. So although the primary incident happened when I was 16, I am aware that from the time I was 13, almost overnight when I turned 13, my father really changed towards me. He was really always short-tempered with me. I could tell that he did not want me expressing myself and just being my own person. He wanted to really force me to be a certain type of daughter, a certain type of person. And I think in hindsight, it's possible that he was having some indecent thoughts, which maybe that's why he actually masturbated in front of me, I'm not sure. And that he was doing everything he could to kind of like make my life difficult and make me the object of scrutiny, make me the object of discipline, turning me into a scapegoat inside of the family, make me into a bad daughter. He called me a bad daughter, said I had an attitude, all of these things. And this was starting before I was 16 and the incident actually happened. I do understand, especially if you have like a toxic parent who is mistreating you, and they have assigned you the role of scapegoat in the family, that running those kind of psyops, doing the emotional manipulation, triangulating you against your siblings, that these are things that they will often do to sort of isolate and ostracize you, and also labeling you as a bad child to call your credibility into question in case you ever were to talk to somebody about how they are treating and abusing you. On top of the immediate shame that I felt and the behavioral changes I made when I started putting, baggy clothes on when my dad was in the house, I had a lot of other behavior changes that happened as a result that I would kind of call symptoms, because I was starting to feel a lot of anger inside and discomfort and frustration. So I was having a lot of behavioral outbursts, and I started to get more in trouble and called a bad child even more at home by my parents. What's interesting to me now is, if you know my parents, you already heard me talking about how they interacted, you know that the behavior they were modeling, I was demonstrating. I was having difficulty, so I was having behavioral outbursts in the same way that they were having it. But no one really sat down to ask me what was going on. I just kept getting in trouble and being called more and more of a bad child. And also in hindsight, I'm beginning to learn that I'm undiagnosed on the autistic spectrum. So I already had some other ways that I behaved differently. I think my sisters, some of them have other neurodivergences as well, but nobody was really asking me what was going on. And I was just continuing to be framed as this like bad child, and nobody was interrogating what was actually happening. Now I was diagnosed with depression when I was a teenager, but this was after I had my favorite teacher killed by a drunk driver. I think I was just grieving, but they diagnosed me with depression. In hindsight, I do think I was having some issues with depression from childhood. But also my therapist now that I've been diagnosed with CPTSD, it's clear to me, and she suggests that I might have actually already had CPTSD at that time. If you talk about the volatile relationship that my parents had, if you talk about the CSA, if you talk about some of the losses I was having and the grief I was experiencing, I probably already had a form of CPTSD at that time, which was causing a whole host of like behavioral changes, nervous system and emotional dysregulation. So I hated myself. I really hated myself a lot for the remainder of my teen years. Because I thought I must have done something wrong, there must be something wrong with who I am. It felt like my authentic self became buried in this protective self, almost like an outer layer, where if I could act or do certain things and get good grades and sort of earn the love, affection, and attention of it was honestly like trying to get my father's love and for him to stop treating me so poorly, that maybe I could change myself into like a good person and do good things, and then these things would stop happening to me. But I actually say that my authentic self was buried in my protective self, and then it was actually wrapped inside of a performative self. And so my actual authentic self was kind of buried down deep. So a lot of what I was doing when I was getting good grades in school and then going to Stanford and then going to get my MFA in film and then making films and doing all of these things, a lot of it was really me performing in the world. I was trying to amass an identity through gathering up all of these external success metrics when deep inside, I still felt like I wasn't good enough. A lot of the symptoms that I've had in my life from childhood to adulthood are really as a result of having these kind of multiple layers of self. I was so suppressed. I didn't have a clear sense of self. And there were physical components as well. I experienced a lot of body dysmorphia, obviously because my father was sexually objectifying me all these years, staring at my parts of my body. And when I would look in the mirror, and this is well up into my 40s, I could not see myself. Like I could kind of see body parts, but the body parts always seemed kind of misshapen and like something must be wrong with them or something must be wrong with me. And I could never really see a unified whole. And I couldn't identify this unified whole body. Number one, I couldn't see it. And then I couldn't identify that the person in that mirror was me. I was not identified with myself. I think they call this derealization and depersonalization. I may be conflating a bunch of terms. My apologies. I'm just talking off the top of my head. As I moved into adulthood, I developed a lot of sexual dysfunction that I realize now is directly connected to the CSA. I experienced sexual anorexia. That's when you kind of avoid having sex at all. I would friend zone a lot of guys who liked me. I had generally like a low libido, which I realize now is connected to the eating disorder, but it also in general was connected to like my fear of men and being in sexual situations. I would often experience like phantom pelvic pain and or numbness. Like I wouldn't even be able to feel that part of my body because I'd felt so sexualized by my father. And I will mention this is not something that I brought up from my teenage years. I would experience, and this is the part that has brought me the most shame, is that because my father sexualized me and put me in a sexual situation before I had a chance to experience normal, healthy socio-emotional development and sexual development myself, sometimes being around my father as an adult, I would experience a sense of arousal, especially when he was staring at my body parts. It was almost like there was a sexual charge. You might think of it like, you know, when you're at work and there's a coworker you always flirt with, you get a little bit, you feel a little flirty and aroused when you're around them. Not that I would feel flirty around my dad, but I would feel a sense of like goosebumps. Some of it would be fight or flight and like wanting to flee and feeling a little bit repulsed, but some of it was genuine, feeling a sense of arousal because he was creating a sexually charged environment around me, even though I was his daughter. I hope this has been helpful. I know that it is gross. Okay, I'm well aware that it's gross. I often feel gross, but I am healing through a lot of these issues, and actually going no contact has helped significantly in many of these aspects. But I do hope that for folks who aren't sure if they've gone through it or experienced it, that if you hear me talk about some of the symptoms, it might be an aha moment for you, because it really was an aha moment to read these stories of other people and then start to see myself in them. Next, I really want to talk about how my life is now that I'm no contact. But first, I think I'm going to make a video talking about what started to happen in my family when I started to talk about my story.